So we had the press conference today for Bellew Cleverly, two-part press conference. First part in Liverpool, second part in Cardiff. I've watched the Liverpool conference so far. The major bit of news is that spectacularly, and in my opinion unbelievably, this fight is going to be on pay-per-view. Now this is two guys who are not fighting for a world title, who both lost when they fought their last notable opponent, fighting on pay-per-view. These are two guys who were originally planned to clash on Kell Brook's undercard. How do you go from a non-title domestic grudge match on an undercard to pay-per-view on Sky Sports? It's a cruiserweight fight. Neither of the guys have done anything at the weight. They haven't beat any quality opposition at the weight at all. As I say, not for a title. And I was very, very taken aback that this is on pay-per-view. I can only assume that they planned a big card with Kell Brook that was going to be pay-per-view. And having worked out the financials and worked out how lovely that was going to be, they are against shelving the pay-per-view plans just because Kell Brook's been injured. This makes it extremely clear why Eddie Hearn has moved the date for this fight a week earlier. Extremely clear. There was all of this posturing about what's good for boxing. Would Frank Warren have moved the card? To me, this proves that all of that discussion was completely disingenuous. The reason they've moved the card is because they want it on pay-per-view, and you can't possibly sell this fight on pay-per-view when Fury and Chisora are fighting on the other channel. Now, as I've stated before on this channel, I believe Fury Chisora is a better fight and a better card than Bellew Cleverly. With those fights a week apart, and with this one being on pay-per-view, I think there's potential for this to struggle. There seems to be uproar on Twitter and on YouTube already that this fight's been made pay-per-view. And with such a big event the week following, it may be that people opt to give this one a miss. I don't know. But yeah, I was a bit dismayed. I think this proves the real reason they've changed the fight. We're talking about two guys here. Now, I'm a big Nathan Cleverly fan. I've followed Nathan Cleverly for a long time. Been a fan of his. But we're talking about two guys here who have failed when they fought at elite level. They weren't overly competitive in their respective fights with Kovalev and Stevenson. They both got stopped. We're talking Tony Bellew, someone I've viewed as just above British level, really. You know, sort of one level above, like the Oval Mackenzies of this world. I think Bellew's a limited fighter with limited movement, limited speed, limited power. I think he's got a limited chin, as we saw against Oval Mackenzie, etc. He's not a world level fighter. He's not, in my opinion, ever going to be someone who has success at world level. I could see him being British champion, maybe I could see him being Commonwealth champion, maybe even in a winnable fight at European level, but he's not at this level in terms of being a pay-per-view headliner. Nathan Cleverly, again, as I say, I am a fan of his, but he lost in devastating fashion to Kovalev, has knocked out two taxi drivers at Cruiserweight, and is now fighting, headlining on pay-per-view. I mean, he hasn't had the success to fight on pay-per-view. Neither of these two guys are huge amongst casual fans. You know, if you ask the man on the street, they know who Carl Froch is. Neither the man on, you know, the average non-boxing fan doesn't know who Nathan Cleverly and Tony Bellew are. And I'm really dismayed that this has been made a pay-per-view level fight. I don't think there's any public recognition for the fight. outside of the boxing public. I think they've both shown failings at world level. There's no title. I mean, you look at the press conference, and both of the guys were discrediting each other's record, and rightly so. You know, perhaps that was an indication that this isn't a pay-per-view fight. Eddie Hearn made some comments about it would be impossible not to make this card, not to have it on pay-per-view. Well, to me that seems unlikely, seeing as it was initially billed as an undercard fight. You know, how on earth could it be impossible to make this fight without pay-per-view if it was initially an undercard? I don't really believe that, you know, this is going to be... It's going to have a great undercard on this one. We've got Scott Quigg, who's perhaps the least entertaining and most dubious world champion out there, with the lowest fan base. You've got Jamie Mcdonnell. I mean, Jamie Mcdonnell and Scott Quigg, they're decent fighters. I don't have anything against them, but these are not publicly known figures. These are hardcore boxing, you know, boxing fan guys. These aren't guys who are a draw, who are going to bring interest, who are going to bring in pay-per-view buys. Stephen Smith in a big fight, you know, that's not going to sell loads of pay-per-views. Anthony Joshua versus Michael Sprott is an entertaining fight, as is Callum Smith. But, you know, the Anthony Joshua-Michael Sprott fight is, if I understand it correctly, a British title eliminator. British title eliminators, that's not pay-per-view level. Stephen Smith isn't a pay-per-view level. Scott Quigg isn't pay-per-view level. Mcdonnell isn't pay-per-view level. And I don't think a fight that was ever intended to be on an undercard can ever headline a pay-per-view. I really, really think it's as simple as that, especially when there's no titles on the line. They're not publicly known figures, and they face very, very dubious opposition, and both been stopped when they went up to the elite level. Well, I appreciate I've gone on for 7 minutes and this has turned into a bit of a rant, but I just don't get it. I don't like it. I think it's very, very bad for boxing. And I could see this doing really, really low numbers, given the sort of lack of public interest in the two headliners, the lack of a superstar on the card, and the fact you've got a massive card the week following. So, not a fan, disappointed, bit dismayed, bit surprised, keen to hear people's thoughts. Am I going a bit OTT? I just see this as a British level fight. I think Cleverly maybe has the potential to go on at Cruiserweight. I'm yet to be convinced by him at Cruiserweight. Bellew, he's not world level, he's not PPV level, not from my eyes anyway. Anyway, thanks for watching. Do leave your comments on this one. I'm really keen to hear people's thoughts and see whether or not this is it's only me who's got this feeling about this one.